Supreme Chancellor Obi-Wan Kenobi by Stone Freak. Chapter 78. A council meeting and a new mission. More and more senators get arrested. The HoloNet is in an uproar, and more planets find themselves suddenly needing to elect new representation to the Senate. Obi-Wan and Hahanash find themselves buried in paperwork and running like headless tukas trying to ensure a safe democratic process taking place in each of the affected planets. Easier said than done, considering many of the arrested senators were never democratically elected in the first place. Couple the chaos of high-ranking senators being arrested and tried in the courts for corruption, and in a few horrifying cases even treason due to the senators in question selling weapons to the separatists, with more separatist worlds clamoring for negotiations of rejoining the Republic. Well, Obi-Wan is starting to feel as strung out and exhausted as he did just before Cody went and spoke with Master Yoda. Which, of course, can only mean one thing. Obi-Wan needs to sleep. He needs rest. He's working himself to the bone despite the fact that he's still recovering from an injury that almost killed him. In all of the chaos that's going on, he hasn't had much time to lie down and rest. He has no doubt that if Volcara finds out, she'll have him by the neck and drag him to bed and sit on him for a week, if that's what it takes. He really does appreciate her and her fire much more when they're peers than he ever did when he was a Padawan, he thinks with a chuckle. He stares at the Magrona rose on his desk, strokes its sleeves, and considers his options for a moment. Perhaps he should just swallow his pride and ask Master Yoda for help. Again, it rankles. It does. But he's in no shape of doing this any other way. Asking for help is not something to be embarrassed about, regardless of what you're asking for help with. Obi-Wan shuts down his holopad before the news report can unload more information that will no doubt cause an uproar that he'll be forced to deal with, and starts heading out. Blast falls in step with him without saying anything, just as he's been wont to do ever since the explosion. Obi-Wan has heard him talk with Cody, however, to ensure him of Obi-Wan's recovery, as well as that of Waxer and Boyle, which was an enormous relief when Obi-Wan was told they are good men, and he would have hated to lose them. He allows Blast to escort him back to the temple. There are few men he would trust more, and he is not yet in any condition to think he should handle himself. Another opportunistic assassin, and it may just be the end of the line for him. Take not your life for granted.
There is something I would like to say, though I am not sure if I should.
Plo Koon's hologram looked conflicted, his brow lowered.
Yes, you should. Let the thoughts fester, you should not. Bad it would be.
Master Yoda leans forward, tapping his gimmer stick once.
It seems like the Separatists are floundering. Their plans are weaker, they've seen through far fewer of our strategies, and we've experienced far fewer setbacks than usual.
Plo pauses and rubs his chin.
It's almost as if they've lost an important source of information.
There's a pause. Complete silence stretches on. Obi-Wan strokes his beard thoughtfully. There's a horrible, niggling suspicion taking root in his mind. A few months ago, he couldn't even have considered it for a second, but in the light of everything else. As if the CIS has had an inside informer from the start. One who's been able to feed them many of our plans and strategies. But in recent times, said informant is lost to them. He glances around the council chamber, curious to see the reactions. Plo nods slowly.
That would fit, yes.
There's an itching in the back of Obi-Wan's head, as if there's something he's missing, something important. The feeling hasn't left him since he woke up from his coma, and regardless of what information he finds or is given, it doesn't go away. There is something. Putting it out of his mind for now, he turns his attention back to the meeting, considering how prolonged the war effort has been, considering how ineffectual Palpatine was, considering the Jedi missions. Is it possible that Palpatine was a spy for the Separatists? His sudden rise to power, the fact that a Sith Lord is the head of the Separatists. Sometimes Obi-Wan wonders how Qui-Gon would have taken the news of his old master's fall. And combining that with the fact that Palpatine likely has been a pawn to the Sith as well, has he been leaking battle plans to Dooku? Or the Sith Master, who in turn gave it to Dooku? But what would Palpatine stand to gain from aiding the Separatists? Even if he's a pawn of the Sith, his time in office was prolonged for the sake of stability during the war. Would that be why? Was he so greedy for power that he would rather have the galaxy be at war than let his term in office end?
Considering something, are you?
Yoda's voice breaks into his thoughts. Obi-Wan looks up and realizes that the entire council is looking at him with curious expressions. I may have a suspicion regarding who the spy might be, but I have no solid proof. It makes sense, but I do not want to affect everyone else's ability to look at the situation with clear and unbiased eyes, so I must keep my silence for the time being. Perhaps once the corruption investigation is finished, he'll know more.
Very well, that is a very reasonable position to take, Master Kenobi.
Mace's voice is grave, but he doesn't seem upset. He likely knows as well as anyone the tightrope they walk. The discussion continues, and Obi-Wan listens intently to his fellow council members as they detail the necessary levels of clearance the spy would need, or at the very least what kind of person the spy would need access to in order to get information from them. When Mace brings up the ecological damage to worlds where fighting has taken place, and the importance of helping the biological life on them recover, Obi-Wan is instantly and horribly reminded of the Zillo beast and Mace's attempts to get it, the last surviving member of its species, relocated to a safe home, only for those hopes to be dashed by Palpatine demanding it be taken to Coruscant for study. Coruscant, where the beast ultimately was killed to save the members of the Galactic Senate. Obi-Wan still cannot fathom what went through Palpatine's mind when he made that decision, that demand, but he knows that Mace is still working on letting go of his regret over what happened. The regret of the innocents you failed to help, failed to save, are usually the regrets that weigh the heaviest on your mind and spirit. Obi-Wan knows the feeling well, and it's one many Jedi meditate on long and often.
Well then,
Master T says and folds her hands in her lap.
if we finish today's session, I believe it is time for me to return to the troops. There have been some irregularities that I need to address, for their own safety and that of the rest of their companies.
At the mention of the clone troopers, the itching in the back of Obi-Wan's head suddenly gives way to remembrance. The chips! That's what he had forgotten. He was going to look in the backups to see if there are mentions regarding those chips he saw a stray mention of. Master T, a moment, please. The entire council freezes on the spot, and Master T's hand hovers in the air from where she was just about to shut off the holo transmission.
Master Kenobi,
she brings rapidly, and Obi-Wan doesn't think he's ever seen her look that surprised before. She's usually entirely unflappable. My apologies for the abruptness. He coughs. I remembered something I've been meaning to speak to the council about, and I think it's best to remain. It's regarding the troopers. Master T leans back in her chair, and she places her hands in her lap.
Absolutely, Master Kenobi. If there's anything I can help you with.
She recovers quickly, which is very typical of her, and Obi-Wan suppresses a smile at the thought. He strokes his beard. Some of the correspondence I saw between former Chancellor Palpatine and the Kaminoans mentioned microchips installed in the brains of every single trooper. He frowns. There was nothing regarding their usage, but their presence worries me. Have the Kaminoans spoken to you about it? Master T's face changes from serene to grave, and she purses her lips briefly.
No, they have not.
She glances off to the side. I was planning on asking Elay and Master Namun to look into the backups and see if there are more mentions of the chips there, and if the virus Elay stopped managed to overwrite them all. He clears his throat. But then the explosion happened, and I didn't remember anything about the chips until now.
How interesting, Stas Ali says, holding her chin.
What if there is nothing in the backups either?
Plo Koon leans forward in his chair.
It's entirely possible that it has never been mentioned in writing besides that one bit of correspondence you already found, Master Kenobi.
We would need to go to the source, wouldn't we? Adigalia gives a meaningful look at Shakti. Of course, the one place where information should exist, for sure, would be Kamino. Who would know better than the Kaminoans who made the clothes in the first place? Master Ranxisis says with a nod. Shakti inclines her head to them.
I will speak to them about it, but I will also do my own research. If they give me a benign answer for their presence, considering all of the conspiracies against us we've found so far, well, I don't trust it, especially since they have not been upfront about them.
I agree,
Mace says suddenly.
Utmost carefulness is imperative. As soon as you know more, Master T, please contact the council with your report.
Of course, Master Rindu. Master T gives him a small bow.
Dark these times are. Dangerous they are. And yet, legend, the Force has. What danger stepped past unknowingly have we?
Master Yoda's words send a shiver through Obi-Wan's body, and the council meeting ends on that most chilling of thoughts.